Yeah. Africa 3 times, and I've always loved it there, but it's a long journey to travel to South Africa, different time zone, but a wonderful place to visit. Definitely worth going. Israel as well. I've been in Israel only once, but again, beautiful experience, really amazing. We'll give it 1 more minute, and then we will kick things off with our first speaker, who is Elmer Lapena, the COO and president of Testech Group. But we'll wait 1 more minute for a couple of more people to join us, and then we'll get going on the subject of how do I protect my environment from viruses. Our idea is here we have 2 presentations, and then we will discuss a little bit between us, some ideas, some follow-up from the presentations, and then the floor is open for you guys to ask any questions that you would like to do. And yes, Istak mentions come back soon. Yes, would be lovely. And he is working on air purification technology as well. Great, wonderful, excellent. Good to see you guys all here. Okay, let me officially welcome you to our uHoo webinar, How Do I Protect My Environment from Viruses? An interactive panel discussion on the challenges and solutions to improve indoor air quality in the new normal, and obviously as well to reduce our virus risk as much as possible. We've all heard the good news yesterday about this, or not yesterday, actually, I think on Monday, about this COVID-19 vaccine being close to ready. Pfizer announced it, but it was actually a medium-sized German company that came up with the vaccine itself, driven by 2 Turkish immigrants, children that came to Germany. So it's quite amazing, actually, how these things happen. But here our focus today is on how we can address here and now our situation in our homes, in our offices, in our premises. So first, I invite Elmer to give us his presentation. He's the CEO and president of Testech Group. So Elmer, we are really looking forward to your presentation, and I know you have loads of exciting things that you can share with us. The floor is yours.
Yeah, Matthias, I lost you there. Should I start with my presentation now?
Yes, sure.
Okay, so are my slides visible?
Yes, they are visible, but you should do the
see
slide share, like presentation
Yeah, well,
mode.
okay. Okay, well, I'm using PDF here. I hope this is, suffices. So, well, thank you, Matthias, for the introduction to get us started here. And, you know, in this picture, I just want to show the blue skies. While everyone went into quarantines, the skies became clear in many places. Even in Manila, the distant mountains suddenly became visible as we enjoyed much cleaner air. What had actually changed was the air quality, as there was much less pollution in the air. Satellite images showed significant reductions in PM 2.5 and NO2 over China and many other parts of the world. Measuring the actual nitrogen dioxide concentrations across Europe, an important discovery was made. It was found that 78% of the COVID-19 deaths were in just 5 regions in Germany, Spain, Italy, and France that had the highest concentrations of nitrogen dioxide. The value of knowledge based on actual data is so important. In order for people to take action, you have to show them that something is wrong. The first step is always about knowing. Once you take action, you have to know whether your action is effective or not. So it always goes back to data. This is what we can call the basic principle of management. In this upper diagram, virus particles are emitted but are unable to escape through the window and ventilation system. In the lower diagram, a larger ventilation system, an open window, provides ventilation to reduce virus particle buildup. With some engineering level controls, it should be obvious that the concentration of aerosolized virus particles becomes less. But the question still remains whether it is better to actually measure and know whether ventilation systems are good enough. This is where a reliable indoor air quality sensor like uHoo can really help. While allowing us to measure the indoor air quality, it allows us to make changes and know whether these changes are effective enough. The uHoo can even be used to turn them on and off as needed. Let us take a case study that many may be familiar with. In this restaurant, patient 0 is at table A. After the meal, 9 other customers were diagnosed with COVID-19, even if they were as far as 4.5 meters away. The length of time of exposure was also found to be critical. Analysts found that the recirculating type of air conditioning played a crucial role. Tables that shared recirculating air were the most affected by patient 0, and everywhere else was spared. So it should be clear that ventilation with fresh air will help, as well as other measures like reducing sound levels to prevent people from having to talk louder and expel more virus particles. Many may have encountered this COVID-19 risk index. This was based on experts' opinions. As we present several use cases in the next slides, we will refer to this activity-based risk index in comparison to an actual uHoo virus risk index. This is a restaurant, and in this case, the activity-based risk level is medium to high. In comparison, the uHoo virus risk index is good at 2/10. Only the temperature was the reason for not scoring better. This was taken on June 17. On July 19, about a month later, the reading was taken again, found to be consistently 2/10, despite having much more persons in the restaurant. So it can be considered relatively safe in such an environment. Here's another case study in an office, which is a BPO in South Korea that you may be familiar with. 9 out of 13 got infected in adjacent workstations. In the same section, 57% got infected. Far fewer of the employees in other areas on the same floor tested positive. And in the rest of the building, only 3 people tested positive out of 927 who underwent checks, 0.3%, despite sharing the lobbies, elevators, and other communal areas. So again, ventilation with fresh air was identified as a key improvement to prevent transmission, as well as diagonal spacing and work groups, among other measures. Offices are rated medium to high using the activity-based risk level. In this office, the uHoo measured 5/10, which is mild, close to medium. The reason for this was high temperature nitrogen dioxide and CO2, which was sometimes high. A ventilator was installed to exhaust the air and introduce fresh air into the building. And the virus risk index went down to 1/10. This is the final reading, which is maintained at this office, which is, by the way, our office in Calamba, Laguna. Let's look at another case in a public transport in a bus. In this case, you have patient 0. By the end of the trip, which was 50 minutes each way, 100 minutes, you had 23 people getting infected, no matter where they sat in the bus. It didn't matter whether you're a meter away. The problem was, again, recirculation. We tried this experiment in a vehicle with a single passenger. You can see that the virus risk index here went very high, 9/10, severe, due to the CO2 level, which went up to 1,944 ppm. Opening the ventilator of the vehicle did not help. Two windows were opened about 2 centimeters, and the virus risk index went down to 3/10, which is good. This is the chart that can be pulled off the uHoo application. It actually shows that the peak CO2 level was reached in 15 minutes. And after opening the windows for 2 cm on each side, it actually improved down to 400 ppm in less than 5 minutes, improving the virus risk index. Aside from being a health risk, it also affects the cognitive ability of the driver and can cause accidents. Let's move now to factories. In this typical factory study that was presented by McKinsey actually showed that installing air filters helps to reduce the virus. This is a clean room with a HEPA filter, class 10,000. The activity risk level for factories is medium to high. With the frequent air changes, typically 15 to 30 times per hour in clean rooms, the virus risk index here was 1/10, which is really very good. But let me just veer off a bit now and show that we actually had a use case where high nitrogen dioxide was detected in this clean room. For 5 days, we could not find the root cause until we finally found a broken booster fan belt, which was located outside the clean room. After we fixed the fan belt, we actually restored the level down here to 1/10. So having the ability to measure the indoor air quality can actually detect some other failures and some other factors. As long as we can measure, there's something that can be done. This is another use case at a clinic. It's a dental clinic, and typically they're not very big. So this was about 60 square meters or 30 square meters. The activity-based risk level is medium to high or medium, and the uHoo virus risk index was 6/10, which is mild or medium. And again, that was due to the high CO2 level. The clinic installed an air purifier and a ventilator, an exhaust fan, and see how much lower the virus risk index improved. It went down to 2/10. So this is significant improvement. Again, knowing your indoor air quality allows you to make improvements. So I'd like to end my presentation with that slide. And over here, we just want to show other services and other products that we provide in Testech Group that can help all of us move forward in this low-touch economy. Thank you.
All right. Great. Thank you so much, Elmer. And there are Elmer's contact details. Take a screenshot. Fascinating presentation. Loads of rich case studies. The car, amazing. What changes when you suddenly open up the window? I have been in buses where I've monitored public buses, the CO2 levels, and I had them even worse than you, Elmer. I think mine once went up to 5,000 and more because there's no fresh air coming in, and then you really have a problem. Before we move on to our second speaker, I just want to launch a quick poll with you guys to get an idea of what we are currently doing in terms of our audience here. Can you please click, and it's multiple choice here, how do you currently protect your indoor air quality? Continuous air quality monitoring, the active management of air quality, air filtration, fresh air supply, use of UV or bipolar ionization or other technologies, regular cleaning of HVAC equipment. I don't do anything. I don't know what to do. So you can click various responses, multiple choice, just so we get an idea of what is our audience doing. Will be interesting for us to just feel the pulse of our audience. All right, we've got 75% of all participants that have answered. Now we've got 80%, maybe one or two more, and then I will show you the results. Very good. We have 90% now. I think that's a great figure already. And let me show you and share the results. The number one item is additional fresh air supply. And I think that is quite understandable because at least in a home or in an office context, if you have the chance that you can open up the windows, that's something that you can do without additional cost. My friend, his wife is a teacher in Germany, told me that every half an hour, his wife now has to record the CO2 levels in the classroom as a requirement in Germany for identifying what is the risk currently. And if it's above a certain level, they actually have to open up the windows. So this is really happening now. And then what do we have as the least? I don't do anything. I don't know what to do. Those are the least answered questions. 18% use UV or bipolar ionization. That's interesting. So great. Thanks so much, giving us a good idea. The active management and the continuous air quality monitoring, a quarter of you are doing it, 24%. So great news. Excellent. We will now move on to our second presenter, Graham Mills. Graham is all the way from the UK. He got up very, very early in the morning. So good morning, Graham, and thanks for getting up so early. He's the Managing Director of Airprofiling Limited, UK, and his topic is how do I protect my environment from viruses? A brief review of potential solutions. Over to you, Graham.
Thank you, Elmer. Thank you. And thank you, Matthias. Can you hear me okay? That's the first thing.
Perfect.
Good. Thank you very much indeed. That was an amazing presentation by Elmer. It really did show everybody very clearly what the problems are, and the case study is absolutely fascinating. I'd like to just move on to what we're doing in the UK. And after all the studies that you've seen, I'm not going to go into too many as far as the UK is concerned. I'm just going to take two. Here's one in King's Cross in London. We installed 40 monitors, and the monitors, that's across 10 floors, and the monitors revealed several issues. The areas of persistent NO2 and CO2, areas of inadequate heat, areas of high RH, and one or two areas with a virus index of 6/10. The data enabled the HVAC to be adjusted, and we're now back to between 2 and 4 on the virus index. Another one in Chiswick Business Park in London. This is a pilot study, and the study immediately revealed a very low RH and a virus index initially between 5 and 6/10. The HVAC controls were adjusted. There was in fact a new fan put in. The RH was rectified, and the virus index now is consistently between 1 and 2/10. The three main categories of ventilation, natural, mechanical, and mixed mode. I don't intend to go into a long description of these three, but I think most people will be aware of them, and certainly your HVAC specialist will know about this. Architects try very hard these days to avoid mechanical ventilation if possible, preferring natural ventilation, but obviously in urban areas, in cities, etc., mechanical ventilation is usually essential because it would include a filtration. This is an interesting point, that in commercial scenarios, not having objective information about indoor air quality is potentially tantamount to dereliction of duty. Employers have a duty to employees. And I'm sorry, just lost my space there. Do beg your pardon. Okay, so regardless of the method of ventilation, indoor air quality is so important to people's health and well-being that not having objective information about it, particularly in commercial premises, is tantamount to dereliction of duty. The duty, of course, is to supply employees with good quality, healthy, unpolluted air to which they are entitled, and it is becoming a human right. Supplying unhealthy, poor air quality could be viewed almost as a criminal offense because polluted air actually is toxic and it poisons the body. And we know from so many medical reports, etc., all the different impacts that polluted air can have on individual health and vital organs, etc. So it's not absolutely clear that there is a requirement to manage indoor air quality. The golden rule, as Elmer indicated early on, is if you don't measure it, you can't manage it, and you have to keep measuring it in order to keep managing it. With the current pandemic, it's never been more important to manage and control indoor air quality. Monitoring indoor air quality with uHoo provides the essential information to help create an indoor environment which impedes the survival of viruses. Coincidentally, an indoor air quality which is relatively hostile to viruses is likely to be better for humans. So there are four aspects to virus control in ventilated areas. The first thing is to hinder viruses from entering the space. The second is to destroy them as they come into the space. The third one is to impede the survival and the spread of the viruses within the space. And the fourth one is to destroy the viruses in the space. Now, hindering viruses from entering the space. The primary source and vector of viruses into ventilated areas is simply people. To protect internal space and occupants, the first priority is to preclude people who might be infected, and in particular to guard against the irresponsible practice of presenteeism. That is, when people turn up for work knowing that they are ill. And this applies not just to COVID-19, of course, but also to people with colds and flu who could wreak havoc by infecting dozens of employees within a building, raising staff sickness, absence, and impacting on productivity. Now, viruses can be airborne. COVID-19 is definitely no exception. There was an amazing example at Amoy Park in Hong Kong, March 2003, with SARS-1, which is part of the coronavirus family. The outbreak occurred amongst residents of Amoy Gardens. By mid-April 2003, there had been a total of 321 cases of SARS in the estate and 41 deaths. So how did this happen? Well, there's a diagram of the 7 blocks in the park, in the gardens, and you can see in the middle of the chart here, this was where the infection 0 occurred, and there was a northeast prevailing wind, and basically the wind eddied and swirled around the other buildings, and you can see what happened there. Number of cases. Now it started from case 0 simply by an exhaust fan on a bathroom ventilating or exhausting infected air direct into the outside environment. So that's how easy it is for viruses to be airborne. So the next thing is to look at the single most important requirement is efficient filtration, which are known vectors, and in particular particulates, which are the known vectors of viruses and bacteria. Take out the particulates and you take out a significant proportion of viruses. The filtration should preferably be in the region of MERV 14, which is the MERV, of course, stands for the minimum efficiency reporting value. I've actually indicated for people who would like to know what the other values are on the EN 779 2012 and the new ISO 16890. The principal technologies for the destruction of inbound airflow. First, we have ultraviolet arrays, photocatalytic oxidation, photoelectrochemical oxidation, and bipolar ionization. Now, I need to emphasize the fact that this is about virus destruction, not about filtration in general. We're not talking about gases, we're not talking about other pollutants, we are talking purely about viruses and the destruction in inbound airflow. Now, ultraviolet basically breaks up the bonds in the DNA molecules within viruses and bacteria. This is where you would actually install the UV, the UV lights. This is the cooling coil here and the UV array in front of it. And that's the air off side. You'll notice also that this is a unit where there's return air from the building, which can contain, this is recycling the air, where the air can contain mold spores and also bacteria and viruses which have been shed by the occupants. The other virtue, of course, of installing UVC is its ability to remove the biofilm on cooling coils, which helps it to operate more effectively. The heat exchange efficiency is restored almost to its design performance. Photocatalytic oxidation. This is when UV light is directed at photocatalytic titanium dioxide. It creates oxidizing hydroxides and radicals, and which attack the harmful pollutants. It destroys the cells, and the byproduct is harmless water and carbon dioxide. And bear in mind that this is an installation inside a ventilation ducting. And here's a photocatalytic oxidation in-duct unit, which is made by RGF in the United States. And you can see the UV light. You can't actually quite make out the titanium dioxide coated plates. Then we go to photoelectrochemical oxidation. This is just simply a rather more developed version of the photocatalytic oxidation, which I've just mentioned. Now, bipolar ionization, this is something where the air is air molecules are split into positive and negative ions. They divide as they divide to reproduce, bacteria and virus cells bond with oxygen ions and are destroyed. This again is through a unit installed in a duct. And there you see one. And this creates a stream, a continuous stream of positive and negative ions which attack bacteria and viruses. Next, we go to impeding the virus survival and the spread within the space. Now, Elmer's already gone through much of this. Is basically to use the indoor air quality monitoring system to enable you to make interventions to make the air less hospitable to viruses. Destroying the viruses within the space. This is usually done by standalone mobile devices, which incorporate many of the technologies which we've shown previous. These are some interesting combinations here of types of mobile units from Radicate, Renser, Healthway in the United States, and RGF again in the United States. And that really sort of covers the main part of this presentation. We might also just talk briefly about the other options. If you have a space which you know to be ventilated, there are total disinfection systems. You need to bring in specialists to disinfect a room or an area by fogging, or alternatively, you can do the same thing by introducing ozone makers. So they're sort of machines that produce vast amounts of ozone. The ozone is very dangerous, and it's only best to use these machines through by contracting specialists to do it for you. There we are. That's the end of my presentation. Thank you.
All right, great. Thank you very much, Graham, as well for an excellent overview, case studies from the UK, and then going a step further and as well talking about the various technological options of tackling and destroying the virus. I like your way of framing it. We need to create an environment that is hostile to the viruses. And I think the good news is that the hostile environment to the viruses is very much in line with an environment that's healthy for humans. That's actually the surprising thing. And that is what's so amazing and coming out from the uHoo virus index, that, you know, you keep NO2 low, you keep CO2 low, you have humidity between 40 to 60%. You keep the temperature between 19 to 24 Celsius. I mean, I myself, my uHoo virus index here in my office where I'm working at the moment is usually, because I don't keep the temperature below 24, my virus index is usually level 3. So it's not number 1, because I don't cool it down so much. As a hardcore environmentalist, I don't want to use too much electricity. So my temperature is usually at 25, 26. That's still fine for me. But as long as, you know, there's good air circulation there, that should still be okay. So excellent examples. Keep it hostile to the virus. Keep it healthy for the human. Then you have good situation for fast virus deactivation and high probability of productive and healthy employees that are actually less sick and more productive in terms of their output of what they can deliver. I think Elmer gave a good example as well from the car situation. If you have very high CO2, you become sleepy. That is actually what I experience a lot when I've been driving a car myself. I get very sleepy when I drive cars. I'm very careful when I drive cars myself because I have that feeling of sleepiness. In the past, I didn't really understand why, but now I kind of realize high CO2 levels. And I've experienced that a lot in offices as well. You know, the open plan offices, you have one area of fresh air supply and one area where the exhaust goes out, because the office was designed to have, you know, air circulation all around. But then people put in small rooms, especially the meeting rooms, and you have no fresh air coming in. You sit around the table in those meeting rooms and everybody is looking sleepy. Why? Because you have a lot of CO2 being generated by the people that are sitting there and no fresh air coming in. And this is highly risky as well from a COVID perspective, because you have no filtration, no fresh air, very a good way for the virus to spread, as we have seen in those examples as well that Elmer gave. I think it was a South Korean case study, right? With the open plan office where a lot of people got infected, where the air was moving along that direction. So a lot of great realizations here. Maybe Elmer, just one quick comment from your experience. I see you are unmuted. From those case studies that you have looked at so far, correct me if I'm wrong, but the adjustments that people had to make were not very costly. They were mainly based on monitoring, understanding, and then taking the action that is based on understanding and knowing what's actually going on.
That's very true. You know, in the dental clinic, for example, the cost of the ventilating fan was only 800 pesos. So you can easily buy that and install it. And, you know, they fix the problem right away. And it's barely nothing to get it done. But the good thing is that they know that the air quality is good, and they can also show it to their clients. So the clients, you know, see what do you have going on here? You have this little device, and they can explain to them that it actually measures, and with a good index, they can actually feel safer inside the clinic. So I mean, it helps really both for the clients as well as for the employees.
Great.
Can I just jump in on this one?
Yeah, yeah.
I think it's important for people to take a long-term overview about the monitoring of indoor air quality. The technology now exists to prove that air supplied to employees is bad and harmful. I think a lot of companies who don't care about the quality of the air supplied could be within a few years could be facing litigation because it would be possible to prove that people's sickness, illness, etc. was actually due to working in an environment where the air was poor quality. So this is a very important factor, and particularly if you are working in litigious countries such as the United States, etc. In the UK, we had a case of, or many cases of claims from coal miners because of the pneumoconiosis which the coal miners suffered from. We also had hundreds of cases of people being affected by asbestos in buildings, etc. And as you know, asbestos now can only be removed by specialists, etc., etc. So poor indoor air quality is something that people need to keep on the agenda because it is potentially threatening to companies and organizations.
I agree with that, Graham. And in the UK and in Europe, you usually have stronger legislation protecting the health of workers. I think what we see in Southeast Asia sometimes is the opposite, that companies don't want to have monitoring equipment because they think, oh, then somebody can later on show that something was wrong. But I think the tide will turn and the time will come where it's a problem if you don't take your duty serious. And we have another angle here, ESG, environment, social governance, the investment funds that are increasingly applying environment, social, and governance criteria for investing in companies and deciding which companies they want to invest in. Under the social aspect, how you treat your employees, health and safety, conditions for your employees, is a key aspect of scoring companies, particularly office-based companies like financial institutions and others whose main significant so-called material impact in ESG terms is based on the workforce. How you treat your workforce, what conditions you bring for your workforce. So beside legal implications, if you are a listed company and you don't manage the health of your employees properly, you will in the future be downgraded by ESG funds because it becomes a material risk that those aspects are not taken properly into consideration. So there are market forces that will punish you if you don't take the appropriate action and if you cannot show evidence that your employees' health, your employees' wellness, and their productivity is top concern for your organization. And I think we're shifting increasingly away as well from classical health and safety, lost time injury illness rate, to a concept of wellness, employee wellness. And that's where indoor air quality will play a huge role. And recently I heard in a webinar from a US guru who is one of the champions of the new wave of good health and wellness for buildings. He was talking about people are doing health washing. In the past, we talked about greenwashing, when companies claim that they are very green, but it's just hot air. Now we have this concept of health washing. Companies might claim they are doing something for the health of the employees, but it's just hot air. Show me the data, show me the evidence. Where is the evidence that you are managing the health of your employees in your offices, in your commercial buildings? We are moving closer and closer towards that time where large investment funds, ESG funds, will want to see that kind of data. And that's where indoor air quality monitoring and management will be essentially the indicator that separates the guys who are doing the right thing versus those who don't do the right thing or who do health washing.
There is actually, Matthias, evidence now that insurance companies are asking their client companies to prove that they are supplying good quality air to their employees as part of their health and wellness program. And if they can't prove it, then the premiums go up.
Wow.
Simple.
That is very powerful as well. So it's really the market increasingly making this an issue of, you get more investment if you do the right thing, or you get punished by higher insurance premiums if you can't show evidence that you are managing this properly. That would be great as well, Graham, if you could share those case studies with us. Maybe you can add a slide in your slides. I think we had the question already, whether we can have a recording, and Lilette already answered this. Yes, a recording will be made available. At the end, we will as well ask you with an exit poll whether you want additional information or be put in touch with any of the speakers. I think we have the first question coming in here from my good friend CK Lau. Graham, from the 4 principal tech for virus destruction in the space, is there a best solution for all cases? For the same space, which is the least to most expensive? And in terms of investment, which is destructing more virus for the same amount of money? Very detailed technical question here, Graham.
That is a very detailed technical question, and I could spend the next half hour talking about the various options. I think it's very important for people to realize that when they're considering these options, they need to look at or to engage with the specialist providers of this type of these technologies. The simplest one, the easiest one, in my view, is the installation of ultraviolet arrays in the ducts of ventilation systems. It has to be correctly installed. It has to be correctly specified. You can't just pick up some UV equipment and stick it in the duct and hope for the best. There's a need, for example, to measure the volume of air, to measure the speed of the air, to look at the pressure drop across the installations, etc., etc. Very, very important to have an expert assessment in the installation of UV and indeed all of the other technologies. But I do think that the simplest version is the one that we talked about. If you haven't got a ventilation system, then you need to go for the standalone air purifiers, which I mentioned to you towards the end of that presentation. There are some very, very good ones in the marketplace, and they're not cheap. You're looking maybe at $1,500 a piece, something like that. And if you were looking at a large room with a medium-sized room with 30 or 40 people working in there, you could end up with a cost of between $6,000 and $7,000 to put in air purifiers.
Elmer, any comments from your side on those experiences? I mean, one thing that was very interesting from your presentation was as well your own clean room and the observation that suddenly the nitrous oxide levels went up to a level and you couldn't explain it until you found the, I think it was the fan coil not working with pushing out the bad air. So what kind of experience have you got with different technological solutions versus the simple solution of just understanding what's going on and fixing maybe the fans and other air circulation related aspects?
Yeah, one of the questions I've gotten in the past is whether the uHoo device actually measures the amount of virus. And I said, no, it does not measure the amount of virus. It actually measures the environment. Um, if we wanted to measure the amount of virus, there are methods that would require swabbing, like swabbing a person and taking a PCR test. You would have to swab down a lot of surfaces and then conduct a PCR analysis and see exactly how much virus loading there was. Totally impractical. There's no way you could do it in real time. And I understand there are technologies being developed by the semiconductor industry to measure the actual virus loading. But then again, at this day and time, at this point, we have to think about there's a question of what is economical and what makes sense. So on a scientific basis, we could go that way, but on a day-to-day economical and more practical approach, we should find a solution that actually works. And so I'm very much in favor of measuring the indoor air quality, and knowing that the CO2 levels are high means that a person potentially with COVID walks in the room and could emit. By the way, CDC defines it as 20 virus particles per minute when you're breathing, 200 virus particles per minute when you're talking, and 200 million virus particles when you sneeze and cough. And you only need 1,000 virus particles to get infected. So this is CDC stuff. So if we know that the air ventilation is good enough to prevent the accumulation of virus particles, then we can all feel safer. Plus, we wear all of this face mask and face shield. We maintain our distance. We limit our discussion with one another to 15 minutes or less. Then we reduce the risk level by 90%. This is what the experts tell us. So to me, you have to combine all of these things and be very disciplined. And after almost 8 months in lockdown or quarantine, we all have acquired new skills, the new normal. I hardly touch my face nowadays because most of the time when I'm outside, I'm wearing a mask and a shield. Touching my face just doesn't happen. And so that's something that we all acquire and change over time. And I think the solutions may be more expensive in some cases where they're needed, where they make sense. But in many other places, like in your homes, or in your offices which may not need them, then you just have to look at cheaper and more practical solutions. The most important thing is to be able to measure, because you may not know that your ventilation is enough if you cannot measure. And the only way I know to measure now is to use an indoor air quality sensor like uHoo, which tells you the CO2 levels.
Yeah, I think if we look back at all of the examples that were given, both by you, Elmer, and uh, in particular with the Korean case studies, the Chinese case studies, it was all indoor. Uh, and even in the bus, that is really the risky area. Outdoor, we don't really have any case studies yet of massive infections, maybe beside the event apparently that the president or future ex-president, we don't know yet exactly what's going on, kind of scenario, the event that he held there. Apparently, there were some people infected by this outdoor event, but I think it actually might have happened while they had the meetings before or after indoor. I don't think that the most of the infection happened outdoor, but indoor is really the issue here. Indoor is the challenge. And if we go back to Graham's presentation, Graham, you're right. The passive solution for the air circulation is really originally the optimum. If we look here at the history in the Philippines, the Bahay Kubo, why was the Bahay Kubo so comfortable in the days when we didn't have aircon? Because it had natural air circulation. And it's cool at night because the sky gives you the cooling effect. So, and in such a scenario, in such a naturally ventilated scenario, the virus risk is going to be very, very low. Outside, the virus infection risk is very low. But those artificial areas, enclosed areas that we have created to make our modern economy run, that is the hotbed of virus infection. Let's start understanding what's going on in our enclosed environments, in our homes, in our offices, at the dentist, in the bus. I used to always take the bus. I haven't taken the bus anymore in the last 6 months because my wife is too scared that I might get infected. I used to take the bus once or twice a week, going up and down to Manila using public transport as an environmentalist. I haven't had a car for the last 20 years, but times have changed. So let's start understanding better what's going on and how we can manage and minimize the risk for viruses and optimize the health for our family. Actually, the starting point for me buying a uHoo device was 3 years ago when my baby daughter was born. Why? Because I wanted to make sure she doesn't breathe in toxic chemicals in our homes. You know, if you look at the products we buy, we got a new bed here a couple of weeks ago. I told my wife, tell the supplier not to use solvent-based materials. The bed comes in, I can smell the solvent left, right, and center. So I have to keep the bed outside for a month until all the solvent disappeared. And then I used my uHoo to measure, is it really now solvent free? Otherwise, I don't want to sleep on a bed with loads of volatile organic compound emissions. So this is, I think, is very, very important. So let me check whether we've got any additional questions from the audience here. We had one or two people that had tricky internet because we have a typhoon again here in the Philippines. But I think Elmer and myself are still okay. Graham was good. Do we have any additional questions from the audience? I think, Lilette, if you could post the link to the uHoo virus index paper, that would be great, because that document has excellent scientific underpinnings for the index, for the recommended levels, how it works. So I all recommend you guys to have a look at it. And this was the index that Elmer in particular was applying for his case studies as a gauge. And even though that is the hostile environment for the virus particles, it's a good and healthy environment for the humans. That is the good news. Yeah, Lilette has already posted the link there in the chat box. Do we have anyone else who wants to ask a question? Lilette mentioned earlier on, if you raise your hand, like if you raise your hand in the Zoom way, we can give you the chance to ask your question as well via your voice. Or if you want to type it in the question and answer section, that is possible, or in the chat box. Your last chance while I launch the exit poll, you can come up with an additional question, because we have another 5 minutes until we've covered the 1 hour. But let me first launch the questions here for our exit poll. With whom do you want to get in touch or learn more after this webinar? It's a multiple choice. Whether you want to connect with anyone, connect with uHoo, connect with Graham, Elmer, or myself. I would only connect with myself in, exceptional circumstances. I wouldn't recommend that to anyone. Just kidding. Just kidding. By the way, Graham, I like your hairstyle. It's very eco-friendly. Less hair, less water, less shampoo. Very eco-friendly.
Well,
In
in the lockdown, I couldn't get my hair cut, and I just decided one day, okay, it's going to go. It was down to my shoulders almost, and I just decided, that's it, go.
Yeah. I feel, Elmer, you should go calvo as well. Very good for the environment. All right, I'll give a little bit more time. We only have half of you guys that have responded so far on the exit poll. Anyone else who wants to respond?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes. James
Yeah,
Paul,
I'm
hi.
James from Luminaire, Singapore. Okay, I had a discussion with Far East Hospitality. Okay, the facilities manager. Actually, we're working with you here in Singapore to do some solutions. Okay, for hotels, can you give me the best business case to install air quality sensors and uh, air purification or disinfection devices? What will be, because usually facilities managers will ask for the business case, right? I mean, all of their costs will be minus, like installation, maintenance, replacing of the filters and stuff like that. So, I mean, I wanted to know your take on what do you think is the best business case, because I have my own, but I wanted to hear from the panel what are this business case in your way.
Yeah, maybe I can provide some information on that. We've
Yep.
done a lot of surveys of several hotels. Fortunately, most of the hotels, if not all of them, have shown very good virus risk index at this time. I'm careful to say at this time because I know that the loading occupancy rates of hotels now are actually very low. So with very low loading, then you have less CO2 levels, you have less risk inherently. But then you have to keep on monitoring. I think for the hotels, they have to keep on monitoring as the occupancy rates go up. And as they increase, they have to decide how to react to the changing environment. And I think that would be the best selling point. The other thing is that they could actually display the monitors that show the virus risk index of the hotel and tell people, inform them what it's all about. Before the pandemic, the uHoo was actually being used in a hotel in Singapore to charge a premium rate for people who are very sensitive. But that may not be the case now because the occupancy rates again are low and people are not as eager to enter into or stay in hotels. But if you tell them that the hotel air quality is good and you can prove it to them, then it may have a better case.
I agree. I agree with Elmer. Yep.
Yeah, I
Thank you.
mean, I would say, hey, visit and stay in our hotel because we give you the data and the information that shows that you are in a safe and healthy space. As much as possible, we manage your indoor air quality room by room and provide you in these worrying times with the most optimized air quality at the lowest virus risk. Wouldn't that be a nice marketing message for bringing people back into the
Yeah,
hotels? Yes,
definitely.
nobody wants to spend extra
Yeah.
money now, but you need to separate yourself from the pack. You
Yep.
know, why you are different from anybody else. You are doing more for the health and the safety of your customers and your guests. And this links as well to one of the comments here from, I think, Rupert, who is working with hotels as well. And he says, couldn't they display it? Yes, you could use the uHoo data and get it on a screen anywhere, put it in the lobby. I remember from a project that launch that I attended in Malaysia, there is a hotel that actually was applying it in a couple of rooms and making it available on the screen in the rooms. And they were selling these rooms as premium rooms,
Correct.
which are allergen free,
Yeah.
anti-allergen.
I think that's the answer I gave them. You got it there. Because like if you're in the booking.com or in Agoda or in hotels.com, if you can add another $15 for the peace of mind, like there are two rates, right?
Yeah.
Like $100 for a normal room without disinfection or without indoor air quality monitoring and stuff like that. And you have another $115 with all the disinfection and the indoor air monitoring.
Yeah.
I mean, before definitely you won't really you'll choose the cheaper ones. But now for the peace of mind, I don't mind paying another $15 just to get a more secure indoor air environment. Because I mentioned to them, you've been very what do you call this? You've been looking after the food you eat, but you never look after the air you breathe. This one both goes into our system, you know, right?
Yeah.
Food goes into our digestive system, and we are very cautious on this. But for the air, yeah. Okay, Graham. Yep.
I was going to add that putting in indoor air quality monitoring in hotels needs to be done very carefully.
Agree.
Basically, there is a potential problem with the monitoring showing up other issues, particularly with cleaning materials and the emission of VOCs from those cleaning materials.
Yeah.
I would always recommend that you do a little pilot to begin with to find out if there are any of these issues first.
Yes.
And that pilot can also serve as a very useful guide for the hotel manager or the hotel owners as to what the air quality is like anyway, regardless of the airborne virus index. Do you see what I mean? It's very
Yeah.
important to get to do these carefully. It can be a double-edged sword. I've seen examples of not with uHoo, I must admit, but where indoor air quality monitors have been put in and flooded a building, and they found that there were just so many problems, they had to literally stop them from functioning because they couldn't get round to rectify all the problems. Thankfully, in that particular instance, the employees and the guests to that building did not see the data. The data was held back from them. Otherwise, I think they would have had a riot on their hands because of the air quality issues that it revealed. So I always recommend caution, pilot first, and build up from there.
Yes, definitely. I agree, Graham. You're right.
Yeah, I think we have as well the question that was answered by Elmer for Rupert. Rupert as well mentioned about ionization. Now, I don't know, Graham, whether you want to answer it or whether I should answer it, considering I am actually sitting in a room that uses bipolar ionization now as we speak. And I think that UV, titanium dioxide, bipolar ionization they all do the job as far as I'm concerned. They have their specific strengths. UV is extremely potent at killing off the virus. You just need to make sure that you don't have constant exposure with people. Titanium dioxide together with light, UV light or other light, can destroy it on the contact with surface. Correct me if I'm wrong, Graham, but I think that's when it gets destroyed. And I have had bipolar ionization here in my room. I haven't experienced any negative or bad feelings like you mentioned here in the comment box. So far, we have had a positive experience as well of it actually eliminating the smell from the kitchen and reducing the temperature of the aircon. Before I set it 24, now I have it at the moment 27. The aircon seems to be functioning much better with the bipolar ionization than without it. So, so far, I can't comment on any negative experience. I only have positive experience. But as I said, I think it depends on the context, on the scenario where you are applying it. It's a question of cost. It's a question of circumstances. But the starting point should be monitoring and measuring. Understanding what is your situation, what is the strengths and weaknesses of your current setup, how you can fix things with simple low-cost measures, and then you can look at the next level of adding additional technology, particularly in an office environment where you have a lot of people present. What else can you do to further reduce the risk of virus particles in the air? Any comments, Graham or Elmer?
I agree 100% with what you've just said there, Matthias. It really does depend on so many different factors as to which technology you use. I'm fairly ambivalent. I have to be fairly agnostic about the different types of technology, simply because the circumstances vary so widely. I have to sort of stay open-minded about which technology is best.
And for Testech, we actually can do systems integration and take the data from uHoo or any sensing device and actually connect it to other devices like UV or other technologies to turn them on and off when needed. So a lot of possible solutions are available.
All right, good. I think Rupert commented already that he will get in touch with me afterwards. I think Lilette as well commented that the hotel in KL was Alila who installed it. And yes, I now remember the name. I took my wife there to the bar on the 20-something floor. Very nice, romantic place, highly recommended. So great place to stay in KL. And we've already overstretched our time by 10 minutes. I think we had a great discussion. Unless there are any urgent issues, I think we can close it for today. But obviously, those who have commented in the exit poll that they would like to follow up with individuals can do so. And please check out the uHoo virus index document. Excellent. Thanks, CK, James, Rupert, Raymond, for your questions and comments. We had a very lively discussion, especially towards the end. I learned some new things today. I thank uHoo for organizing this, Lilette for doing all the hard work in the background, Graham and Elmer for excellent presentations. And I hope that some of you guys can move forward with managing and monitoring your air quality for your own benefit, for the benefit of your loved ones at home, or your fellow employees at your place of work, and wishing you all the best and a COVID-free rest of the year and a super positive 2022 that hopefully will be better than 2021. But even in, I'm ahead of myself, right? A good 2021 with a you know, hopefully better than 2020. But, you know, we've learned new things. We have progressed even in 2020. And when I look back, I see a lot of opportunities that have come through us being challenged to think differently. And definitely indoor air quality and indoor health has received a gigantic wake-up call and boost through the COVID experience that we have had. So I think we are more enlightened now than we were before. There's been a lot of research done. So thanks everybody for joining today, and thanks for your great contributions, Elmer, Graham, and everybody else. And see you again in December. Lilette, what was the date again of our next uHoo webinar?
Matthias, before anything else, I think we have another participant who wants to say something.
Oh.
He raised his hands. Go ahead.
Hi.
Yes, our friend from Greece, from Athens.
Yes,
I remember you.
Yes. Hi. Thank you very much for very informative talks there and discussion. I have a late question, if I may. My question is, how do you determine the virus risk index? And is it a virus index, a general for all viruses, or for a particular virus in a room?
Great question. We didn't really explain that at the beginning. So Elmer, do you want to take that question, or Graham?
Okay, let Graham go ahead.
The virus index was established by work with medical scientists who understand the way in which viruses survive and the circumstances in which they survive best. And contrary to that, the type of circumstances where the viruses do not survive well. This is a generic algorithm which looks across all the parameters within uHoo's capability, and can look at things like temperature, humidity, the presence of CO2, the presence of NO2, etc., all the things that would influence the way in which a virus would survive. And there are clear lines over which the virus survival would be very low, and this virus survival on the other side would be good. So the objective always is to achieve a hostile environment for the viruses, but it is done by algorithm which has been developed by uHoo's medical scientists.
Yeah, maybe if I can add on to that excellent explanation, Graham. Theophile, if you download the document that Lilette shared, you will see all the scientific studies that have been used as a reference point for the establishing of the uHoo virus index quoted in the document. And these scientific studies are based on SARS and COVID-related research with regards to various aspects of it, such as humidity, nitrous dioxide, CO2 levels, and how viruses behave in terms of their life duration. So the intention of the virus index is, as Graham said, to create this hostile environment where you deactivate the virus as fast as possible to ensure that there is no survival of virus particles that might be floating in the air. But the exact scientific detail is documented in the white paper that you can download. Lilette, can you copy it again, or let me just check here. I think I have it as well. And I'll just, yeah, here. This link I just put down in the chat box. If you go there, you will find the downloadable white paper with all the scientific rationale for this virus index. It was created for the uHoo monitoring tool. It was developed by uHoo, and it works directly with the uHoo monitoring device. So Elmer, myself, and Graham, when we switch on our uHoo app on the phone, we will get a rating based on the algorithm that takes the data from our monitoring device and then gives us a risk rating based on that scientific underpinning rationale. All right. Thank you very much, guys. Thank you, Theophile, to Hellas Athens for a very good question. Thanks, everybody else. See you next time in December for our next uHoo webinar. We will focus on natural waste. We will look at plants, how we can work out a better indoor environment with the use of plants and other natural measures. So see you in December. All the best. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.